How many of you I have not had the opportunity of meeting before? Hands up. Ooh, quite a number. Wonderful. So, glad to meet all of you all. Now, this is a topic which is commonly raised, and when I share back in JB and I talk to people, especially a lot of the very humble, hardworking housewives, they always say, enlightenment, no, not this life, maybe next life, And it's very common, and, so I say, of course it's fine, after all, we didn't get enlightened in the past 100,000 lives, what's one more, So, while we may not get enlightened, but let us make good use of this life. And I see a lot of youth around here, which is wonderful. I just shared at Wat Ananda before I came here, and there were only 3 people below 20 years old there. I actually asked them, how many people here below 20 years old? Hands up. There were only 3. I'm sure if I ask the same question here, how many of you in this room is below 20 years old? Hands up. Quite a number. Wonderful. Now, to make sure you are paying attention, I'm going to ask you at the end of this talk, how many polar bears over there? Okay, so pay attention as to how many polar bears there are. All right? Now, let's begin. Okay? First slide, please. Okay. Now, if you look at this, you will see it's Huangshan in China. Beautiful mountains which probably took hundreds of thousands of years for nature to slowly carve them into the beauty that it is. And people look at mountains and, who would believe that mountains move? They look so stable, But the Buddha gave a very, very good teaching using the simile of mountains. And for us, lay people, even if we don't get enlightened in this life, we have to find a meaning in what we do every day. So even if you don't get enlightened, that's all right, perfectly all right. First, find meaning in life and learn to have right view. Because right view is literally like a pair of glasses. Many people here wear spectacles. Singapore is one of the highest incidences of spectacle wearing in the world. And right view is exactly like wearing spectacles. Because if your spectacles are tinted, for example, then everything you see in life is pink color or blue color or whatever color you tint your spectacles. Or similarly, if your spectacles are not well fitting, then everything you see in life is going to be distorted. So right view is very, very important, and in fact fundamental to our path. And if you look at the Noble Eightfold Path, the very first step in the Noble Eightfold Path is right view. Because when your views are right, the thoughts that follow are right. And when the thoughts that follow are right, then your speech, your action, your livelihood is right. And similarly, your efforts, your concentration, your mindfulness is right. So it rests on the foundation of right view. And so even if we do not get enlightened, it's all right, but at least develop the appropriate view, and then life will be much more pleasant. Next, please. Now, the Buddha gave a simile using mountains. And he said, like massive boulders, mountains pressing against the sky, moving in from all sides, crushing the 4 directions. So aging and death come rolling over living beings. Noble warriors, priests, merchants, workers, castes, outcasts, scavengers. They spare nothing, they trample nothing, from Samyutta Nikaya. I mean, who would think that a mountain would move? And similarly, when we are in good health, when we are young, aging, sickness, decay seems so far away. We look at them as almost mountains, when I was a schoolboy, any school teacher who is 40 years old is very old. And now I'm 50 years old, and anybody who is 70 is young. So, the Buddha said, aging, sickness, and death might seem far away and seem distant, but even massive mountains and boulders move. And if you can understand this simile, you will have learned a very basic lesson in Buddhism, and that is the lesson of impermanence. Everything changes. Next. And let this be a wake-up call for us. All right, next. Now, the process of enlightenment involves actually unlearning rather than learning. That's the word enlightenment. To lighten. It's not enheavyment. It doesn't mean get more, get more, get more. It's enlightenment. It's a process of letting go, of unlearning much of the things that we hold dear. We'll speak more about it as we go along. And so we have to reflect, we have to discern, to transform our lives. Next. And as Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Next. Now, like any other person, every one of us have difficult passages in life. As a doctor, I see life and death issues every day. As a teacher, I teach my students medicine. But more important, how to be a good person, because I believe that being a good doctor will come naturally when you're a good person. And as a university staff, I have to tolerate all kinds of red tape and nonsense. But at least I'm blessed that family problems are far and in between, you know. So the guy who thinks he got no problems in life is really living in the clouds. And I always tell people that the only person with no stress is a dead man. Next, please. So how do we adapt and act to accept unhappiness and death? How do we remain good amidst pain and ceaseless change? Well, back again. You must first find meaning in life and have right view. And I purposely underline the word in, because people will often ask you, what is the meaning of life? Knock, knock, your door open. What's the meaning of life? Now, people ask me that question now, I ask them back, which life are you talking about? My past one, my present one, or my future one? All right, so really not meaning of life, but really meaning in life, because life is a succession of moments. Zillion of interminable moments, one following another. And each one of that moment is unique from the next moment. That your moment is different from my moment, is different from Jerry's moment. And every one of us has a different circumstance and a different condition to which we respond. It's really a meaning in life, in that present moment. So what matters is not the meaning of life in general, but rather the specific meaning in a person's life at any given moment. Next. And the Buddha said, and what monks is right view? It is, monks, the knowledge of the existence of unhappiness, suffering, and dissatisfaction. Of course, there's lots of happiness. Some of us are very blessed. We live in environments, countries, families, whereby there is far more happiness than there is unhappiness. But nevertheless, there is unhappiness, because that is a common denominator of all of life, whatever your station is. Some people, being unfortunate, have lots and lots of unhappiness and only a little bit of happiness. So whichever end of the spectrum you are in, you have to realize that because of the ceaseless nature of change, there is inevitably dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness or unhappiness. And even within you, if your life is so blessed to be full of happiness, there are many, many around us who have much more unhappiness that we can do something about to help, to relieve. What is the knowledge of the origin of unhappiness? What's the knowledge of its cessation, and the knowledge of the way of practice which leads to its cessation? That is called right view, the Buddha said. Next, please. Now, Leo Tolstoy was a great Russian novelist. His writings have much of the Dhamma in it, even though he was never officially a Buddhist. And he said, what is the most important time? Well, the most important time is now, because that's the only moment we have now. What is the most important thing to do? To do our very best at this moment in time. And what is the most important person? The person, the last three words has been cut off, the person we are with right now. All right? Now, this is a lesson that is oft repeated in many sharings. Next. Now, finding life's meaning or purpose is essential for every one of us. Next. Because life is basically lived in the present moment. And it's an opportunity for making choices in every situation, exploring values and attitudes, seeking personal growth including the acceptance of suffering, death, sacrifice as your chosen avenue of responsibility. So if you have a child, and the child wakes up at 3 a.m. every night and cry, don't blame the child, blame yourself for having a child. Because that's your chosen avenue of responsibility. Basically, it is to find reasons to live well, to be a good, wholesome person. Next. So what ultimately then is the real purpose in life? And this has to be a personal decision, because every one of us have differing circumstances. Okay? The individual defines everything, and we must all work these things out for ourselves. Next. But is there a guide? Well, of course there's a guide. Next, please. Now, with right view, you develop confidence and appropriate self-esteem. We know what to do and, more important, what not to do. And we view life realistically. Next. Little drops of water, little grains of sand make the mighty ocean and the pleasant land. Thus the little minutes, humble though they be, make the mighty ages of eternity. That's a beautiful poem, isn't it? But that's basically what it is, a moment-to-moment-to-moment thing. So let us use these minutes well, and in our search for the meaning in life, let us be freed from the chains that we tie ourselves in. And as I shared at Ananda just now, between the woman and the golf, 50% of men's time is already taken up. Next. Now, we the lay people, and it is possible now to be a success in life while working and earning a living. Success is not measured purely in material returns. And if you look at the cartoon there, okay, next please. And the cycle goes on. So let's make use of it, because if not, it's going to be an endless, repetitive cycle, one after another, after another. So now you can look forward to not just a life, or a life of material success, but a life of significance. Next, please. Now, let's look at some examples of people who lived lives of significance. Let's look at a doctor to start with. Okay, next. Jivaka was the doctor to the Sangha and the Buddhist physician, but he was the son of a prostitute. And after his birth, he was actually abandoned in a rubbish heap, literally to die. He studied medicine in Taxila, and then he became the physician to King Bimbisara of Maganda. And Jivaka became a disciple of the Buddha, and he would treat the Sangha and the Buddha whenever they become sick. And he donated his personal garden, the mango grove, to the Sangha. And those of you who have been to pilgrimage, been to Rajgir, you will still see mango grove there today, or at least the ruins of mango grove. Okay, next. Let's take a look at a businessman. Okay, I'm sure many in this room are business people with money trees somewhere. Now, Anathapindika was a banker and a patron of the Buddha. He gave Jetavana monastery to the Buddha. And those of you who had been to Saraswati would have actually visited Jetavana monastery, a beautiful monastery. Of course, in ruins now, but nevertheless, still there. And it's a huge monastery, which Anathapindika bought in gold from Prince Jetavana. And Anathapindika was a most generous man. He fed 100 monks daily, and on top of that, he gave free food to anybody who needed it. Next. Well, let's take a look at a housewife and a mother. Next. Visakha. She was of a very rich family and had an arranged marriage to another very rich family. And there she famously taught her father-in-law the Dhamma. Well, that's something unheard of, isn't it? Who would imagine a daughter-in-law teaching the father-in-law the Dhamma? So much so that when the father-in-law learned of the Dhamma, he called the daughter-in-law, Visakha, Migara Mata, which means the mother of Migara. The father-in-law said, "You are my mother, because you have taught me the truth." And he addressed her as the mother. All right, he was so grateful. Visakha was the chief female lay benefactor, and she donated Pubarama Monastery. And she was well respected in the Sangha, well respected for her wisdom, generosity, and her management skills. And she took charge of the Bhikkhuni Sangha. She had a long life and a large brood. Next. Now what about the rest who are neither doctors nor businessmen, but simple lay people? There's a huge group of us who are lay people. Okay, next. Chitta was a layman, and he was taught the Dhamma by the Venerable Mahanama, and he became an anagami, a non-returner. And if you look at Samyutta Nikaya, there's a chapter called the Chitta Samyutta, which records the teachings of the householder Chitta. And Chitta was such a wise person that he actually taught the monks the Dhamma. And when Chitta was dying on his bed, the devas, the gods whom he taught, visited him and actually asked him to aspire for kingship among the gods. But Chitta refused to have anything so impermanent, and even on his deathbed he instructed the devas and his relatives around him on the Dhamma. Next. So that's examples of people, lay people, who made great significant contributions, and even now, 2,500 years later, we remember their lives of significance. Confidence, self-esteem, saddha. Saddha, as you know, is the first of the 5 faculties. You have the 5 faculties which all of us have. Saddha, faith or confidence, and you have energy, you have mindfulness, you have concentration, and you have wisdom. These faculties are present in all of us. And confidence is the first of the 5, or saddha. And self-esteem is the disposition to experience ourselves as being competent to cope with the basic challenges of life and being worthy of happiness. Next. And it's necessary to have a healthy self-esteem in life. The survival value of such confidence is, of course, obvious, isn't it? So is the danger when self-esteem is missing. Next. Now, the Buddha gave man the highest boost to his confidence. The Buddha taught that man can be enlightened, he can be purified, he can be perfected by his own efforts. And the Buddha unequivocally said that man can reach the highest levels of perfection if only he would try. Okay, next. Well, of course, know that as human beings we are not omnipotent. We should act when we can change the outcome. We should accept things as they are when we cannot, in order to achieve wisdom, equanimity, calmness, serenity, and peace of mind. Now, these are actually teachings of the Buddha, which I've merely paraphrased into modern English. The Buddha gave teachings on panna, which is wisdom, upekkha, equanimity, and samatha, which is calmness of mind. Now, many people have the mistaken notion that when you become a good Buddhist, you accept things in life and you just lay back and, let things be. That's far from the truth. If you look at the life of the Buddha in fact was a revolutionary who changed what is considered really very unjustifiable, very unfair in the society of his time. 2 clear examples. One example was the caste system, prevalent then, prevalent now. And the Buddha, as you know, told them that the caste system is entirely a figment of man's imagination. And people who join the Sangha, no matter of what caste you are in, once you join the Sangha, you are casteless. You do not belong to any caste. And when his own royal cousins came to be ordained, all right, when his own cousins came to be ordained, the barber, Upali, was ordained first. So that every time his royal cousins meet the barber, Upali, they will have to bow down in respect. Because the Sakyans are a very proud, very conceited tribe. And here, the barber, Upali, was intentionally ordained first, such that every time the royal cousins who are now monks meet the barber, Upali, they will have to bow down in respect to his seniority. All right? So the Buddha said, no matter what caste you are from, royal family, whatever, the instant you join the Sangha, you are now equal to anybody else and anybody else. Similarly, I always say, whether you're male or you're female, the instant you join the Sangha, you become the third sex, which is sexless. Okay? Now, the other big revolution the Buddha initiated was the Bhikkhuni Sangha. The Bhikkhuni Sangha, some of you might know, is the first female monastic movement. 2,600 years ago, for a woman to leave home, live among strangers, was something probably completely incomprehensible. Even now in Singapore, could you imagine an Indian family letting their daughter leave home, live among strangers, hold an alms bowl and stand in the morning market for alms? It would be something completely quite unacceptable. So the Bhikkhuni Sangha that was started was again something revolutionary. You have to remember that at that time, women were not even allowed to participate in religious rituals. And here the Buddha said that women can be enlightened as much as any man can be enlightened. So it's not that you do not strive for change, but you have to know what you can change and what is impossible to change. Next. So this box here is very important. Effects of acting and not acting, depending on whether things are within or without our control. And if you can control some things, of course we act to improve it for the better. If you don't act, that's surrender. If you cannot control and you act, that's futility. If you cannot control, then we accept it. And that's why we always say, let me know the things that I can do to change for the better. And let me know the things that are beyond me that I might accept it with equanimity. All right? Clear? Next. Choose mastery or serenity. It's up to us. Next. Now have an appreciative acceptance of circumstances and other people. It is relative. It is related to the affirmation of life with all of its variety, its pains, its pleasures. And remember, machines have no brain. We have to use our own. Next. There is no point to be a sacrificial offering on the altar of hopelessness, because some things are just cannot be changed, so you have to accept it. Okay? That was me trying to fight the university administration. Next, please. So write our good times in stone and our bad times or sad times in sand, because when the next wave comes, the sad times will be just washed away. Okay? Next, please. This is a very important cartoon. Please watch it. All right? It's a very important cartoon. While it is funny, it teaches a very important lesson in the Dhamma. Things happen to us. And when things happen to us, we'll blame everybody. You know, it's God's fault, it's fate, it's destiny, it's whatever. So various religions have various terms for it, you know. You know, I always look at the obituary and people say, taken safely home into the arms of, you know. I say, why are you crying then? You know? Or people will blame destiny, faith, anything. Now, the Buddha made it very, very clear. 3 things the Buddha said is completely untrue. The first thing which is completely untrue is that everything is due to karma, predestination. And that is one of the fundamental lessons that the Buddha tried to hammer into people's head. Because in the context of the Buddha's time, there were people who believed in predestination or faith. And they believed that, oh, it's your karma to be born into this family, that's why you are untouchable. Or it's your karma to suffer. The Buddha said that is completely not true. Not everything is due to karma. Because karma is all the time changing. You can change your karma at any time by doing things which will affect the course of its action. So it is not true to say, oh, my life is predestined. All right, that's not true. So if you drive your car and have an accident, you only have to blame yourself for being mindless. The second thing the Buddha said is untrue, is the context of people at his time who believed that everything is due to God. Everything is an act of God. Okay, the building falls down, it's an act of God. The tsunami happens, it's an act of God. The Buddha said, no, that's not true. Don't blame the poor gods for everything. Okay? If the weather has become hotter the last decade, don't blame the gods. It's our carbon dioxide emission that made it. If anything you want to blame ourselves. And the third thing the Buddha said is completely untrue, is the fact that some people believe that everything is absolutely based on chance, that nothing is due to cause and effect. That is also not true, the Buddha said. There are many things which are due to cause and effect. It's not just a throw of the dice. So remember, these three things were the three no-nos that the Buddha stood up and said is not correct. One, the belief in predestination or faith. That means that karma is immutable and that it makes you die at the age of 45, or it makes you fall ill at the age of 40. That's not true, the Buddha said, because karma is changing at every moment. Whatever you do now changes your karma for the coming moment, or coming life, or coming year. And not everything is blamed onto some man who looks like Zeus. Neither is everything a throw of a ball or a game of dice. So if you sit into a car and you have an accident, don't blame anyone but yourself. So while we have personal freedom, we must be aware and accept full responsibility for our action and behavior. So like that man, if you're so crazy in love that you walk closer under the edge and fall down the cliff, don't blame anybody other than your own mindlessness. Next, please. So while we are not mindful, we make silly decisions to regret later. And again, these teachings are ancient teachings which I merely paraphrase and use a cartoon to illustrate. The teachings of sati, mindfulness or awareness, the teachings of insight, vipassana, the teachings of kamma, which is basically action, and vipaka, the results of action. Next. So don't make promises when you enjoy, don't reply when you are sad, and never make decisions when you are angry. Always consult your wife. Think twice and act wise. Okay? Next. Now the purpose of life is a life of purpose. Man is nothing if there is no direction, no meaning, no purpose to his life. But it is up to him to give it a meaning. There is no fixed or predetermined direction for your life, like, oh, your life is dedicated to the glorifying of one particular God. That's why people say, what is the purpose of life? No, I said, no, that's not true. What's the purpose in life, not of life? My life is not just dedicated to the glorifying of somebody. Your life is in your hands, basically. Next, please. Now, I purposely added this slide because somebody in Johor Bahru, when I shared this, commented again about why did Dr. Wong put it as a moment-to-moment thing. He said, Dr. Wong, what you have shared is so situational. You said, it's what's the purpose of life in this moment? What's the purpose of life at this point? What is your choice at this point? He said, it is so situational and fluid. And the reason why I purposely put it that way is because life is moment by moment. Life is situational and fluid. And at every moment, you are changing your karma, like the traffic flow and the water under the bridge here. At every moment, whatever decisions we make changes the direction of your life. For example, for the young people below 20 in this room, when you are in college, in university, in polytechnic, please study hard. You know, just a few days ago, I received a letter from somebody studying in a uni in KL, one of the Buddhist girls, and she said, my best friend has a boyfriend in uni and now they're quarreling and she's very negative, blah, 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 blah. What should I do from the Buddhist point of view? So I wrote back, from the Buddhist point of view, you should be studying. I said, that's the best advice I can give you. What the hell are you doing? Your parents are spending good money to put you in university and you are kepoing all these things, you know. So our lives, our karma changes moment to moment to moment. It's all the time changing. And just as I shared in Wat Ananda just now, people ask me a few times in the past, why, Dr. Wong, did you become a Buddhist? And I said, I became a Buddhist after I opened the Dhammapada in a bookshop. And I look at the first and second verses of the Dhammapada in the bookshop. I'm quite a cheapskate. I always read free books in the bookshops. So I read the first and second verse of the Dhammapada in the bookshop, and I felt it was really something very, very different. The first verse of the Dhammapada says, mind, M-I-N-D, is foremost, mind is chief. Everything that we do arises from the mind. It has to start with a little spark in the mind that you want to do something. And the Buddha said in the first verse that if you do something unwholesome, it is going to follow you like the wheels that follow the hoof of an ox. The second verse of the Dhammapada says, mind is foremost, mind is chief. If you do anything that is good or wholesome, it will follow you like the shadow that never leaves. And while we might read it, the Buddha is a very, very wise man. He never used similes without deep meaning. You have to really try to understand these two verses. And if you can understand these two verses, you're already halfway to enlightenment. Or maybe three-quarter way to enlightenment. What does the first verse say? Mind is foremost, mind is chief. Everything that we do has to initiate from a thought and intention in the mind. And karma, the Buddha has taught over and over again, is basically that intention. So while we do things, even when people come and give dana, for example, what is that intention? Many people give dana not because they want to do charity, but because they think that by giving it to this very eminent monk, I'm going to have good returns. Maybe strike a lottery, get a promotion. That's merely spiritual greed, now utilized into material greed or acquisition of more mundane things. What is that intention? That's karma. So a lot of people do good things openly, but what is your intention of doing that good thing? A lot of it is for very mundane returns. You want to have good karma, then that intention must be noble. Okay, the best time to put up a collection box is near exam period. Near periods of public exam, put up a few collection boxes. Sure, lots of dana. Because people believe that by putting there, my son will get good results, my daughter will have good results, etc., etc. But that's not the point. If your son or your daughter get good results, they have to study hard. Okay? So, mind is foremost, mind is chief. If you do something bad, it is like the wheels that follow the hoof of an ox. I asked in Wat Ananda just now, what is an ox? Nobody in the hall knew. What is an ox? What's the difference between a bull, a cow, and an ox? Anybody? Well, you have a bull, which is a male. You have a cow, which is the female. So what's an ox? An ox is a castrated bull. So people keep on saying year of the ox, and I always laugh, wow, these people saying year of the ox. No wonder we have economic crisis, swine flu. It is the year of the castrated bull. Right, Toby? So the simile use is very profound. If you do something unwholesome, it is like the wheels that follow the hoof of an ox. Okay? Tough life. Second simile, mind is foremost, mind is chief. Whatever good that you do, that action will follow you like a shadow that never leaves. First and foremost, hardly any one of us even appreciate our shadows. So while we have good things, good families, good parents, good whatever, we hardly ever appreciate it. We take it for granted. Just like we take the shadow for granted, whoever bothers about the shadow. Wonderful simile. But remember, even a shadow can disappear. Okay? Brother Jerry, the whole committee here does lots of good work. So they create beautiful shadows. But if they walk into a dark room, like this room was when the lights were off, what happens to the shadow? It disappears. So even the good things that you do, they only manifest in good, appropriate, wholesome circumstances. You could have done wonderful things in the past, but if you do not have the conditions for it to arise to an effect, it is not going to be there. And similarly, the ox can pull the bullock cart in Indian villages, whereby the roads are full of potholes, suffering upon suffering. Or if you can find an ox in Singapore, I doubt you can. If you can find an ox in Singapore and pull it along BKE, it's not that difficult because at least the roads are smooth. So we can modify our bad karma. Similarly, Our good karma can neither come into fruition or come into fruition depending on circumstances. And in the Salt Crystal Sutta, for example, Buddha said you can take a same lump of salt, put it in a cup, the water will be very salty. You take that same lump of salt, you throw it into the Ganges River, you take back a cup of water, you won't even taste the saltiness. So we are changing our karma at every moment in time. It is a highly fluid circumstance. All right? Is that clear? Okay, good. Next. So we are free to create ourselves, our future, by our choices. Every time we make a choice, we are modifying our karma slightly. Of course, when you make a choice between to eat asam laksa or curry laksa, that doesn't make much difference to your karma, other than the fact that you might grow fatter or not fatter. We invent our lives and its consequences. And the Buddha encourages us to think, to choose our lifestyles with wisdom. And just now, all of you would have taken the 5 precepts. If you look at your 5 precepts, there is absolutely nothing religious in them. All of you took the 5 precepts just now, right, Brother Jerry? Yeah. The 5 precepts, is there anything religious in there? Nothing. They are basically humanistic, moralistic guidelines for you to be a good person. Zero religion is involved. Okay? Next. The Buddha said, develop the quiet, even state of mind. When praised by some, condemned by others. Free the mind from hate and pride, and gently go your way in peace. Peaceful, quiet, and restrained, speaking little without conceit. Such a one shakes off all evil as the wind shakes leaves off a tree. Next, please. We all need a dream of what might be. And the third noble truth tells you that you can be able to attain a mind state whereby there is no greed, no ill will, no ignorance. And that's the end of suffering. And those who have a why can endure anyhow. Next, please. Well, life's tough, that's true. Okay, all of you know, especially in these economic bad times. Seeing the way is like going into a dark room with a torch. The darkness instantly departs, while the light alone remains. When the way is attained and the truth is seen, ignorance vanishes and enlightenment abides forever. Next. Materially, do we have enough? I won't ask the question. Enough is never enough for most people. Those who do not know what enough is cannot move on, because the whole life is spent in the pursuit of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So somewhere along the way, you need to make a balance, and you need to learn to let go. But having enough does not mean giving up all the activities of the world, and that's another misconception. It doesn't mean that, oh, I've become a Buddhist, I'll live in glorious poverty. That's not true. The Buddha said there is righteous wealth. Righteous wealth is wealth earned by the strength of your arm and the sweat of your brow without breaking the 5 precepts. Okay? If you can earn your billions of, what's the best currency now? US dollar is no good. Okay. Okay, sisters say Australia. You earn your billions of Aussie dollars without breaking the 5 precepts. I congratulate you. All right? There's nothing wrong with working hard and earning money. If nobody works hard and nobody earns money, BF will close down tomorrow. Somebody has to work hard. Remember Anathapindika? He was a very successful businessman. Without Anathapindika, you will have no Jetavana. Okay? Remember Jivaka? If you are so content, no need to study law or just stay at home every day, you will have no doctor. So of course you got to work hard. You got to do what you can do. Be the best that you can. But don't break the 5 precepts. So righteous wealth is all right. Okay? And the Buddha in fact gave guidelines. How do you use the righteous wealth that you have acquired? Okay? Next. Saying yes to enough encourages you, however, to move from success down to significance. Realizing enough does set us free to pursue our spiritual goals instead of an endless pursuit of wealth. Next. Next, please. Oh, don't jump my logo. That's my company. Okay? Next, please. Okay? We never have enough. Next, please. So even must realize that even when you win the rat race, you're still a rat, Okay? Next, please. Now, one is not headless or adrift when the Buddha is the chairman of our board of management. And that I got to thank Brother Henry who taught me that wonderful lesson. You see, my family is run like a board. I'm obviously not the CEO. My wife is the CEO. I'm not even the deputy or the deputy to the deputy. That's my two daughters. I'm just a committee member on ad hoc basis. So as I shared with Ananda just now, when I got married, I told my wife in no uncertain terms, Toby, hear this. I told my wife in no uncertain terms, in this family, I'm the general. You are the major. I'm the 3-star general. You only the major. Get that clear? And so, since then, she makes all the major decisions and I make the general decisions. Okay? Which toilet paper to use, etc. Those are my department. But it's all right as long as the Buddha is the chairman of the board. Then at least we have a sense of direction. Okay? So we are not necessarily headless like the poor teddy bear. Neither are we adrift at sea like that poor Dr. Wong there floating in the South China Sea. Okay? I'm retired now, but I'm not retired from work, just that I was tired yesterday and I'm tired again today, so I'm tired. Next. Don't worry about H1N1. Patients who get infected looks like that, so you spot them a mile away. Next. Okay, as lay people, we can all enjoy the arts in its forms, in its glorious ways, like you people, I believe, are going to enjoy songs and music later today. Festivals and feasts, acts of generosity, kindness, courage, the feel-good factor of love, sympathy, sacrifice. During Vesak Day, lots of you donated things to the old folks and the underprivileged. We can be funny, humorous to enrich our lives. Of course, we are lay people. We are not monks. You do not have a precept that says, I cannot sit on a high chair comfortably and listen to Tchaikovsky's concerto. Okay, you do not have that precept. You do not have a precept that says you cannot attend a concert and watch young people sing. Neither do you have a precept that says you can't watch Mr. Bean. Okay? You're lay people. You only have 5 precepts. And the 5 precepts are so simple. You just chanted them. Okay? So, as long as you don't break the 5 precepts, you can go through all these things. Okay? Of course, if you are a Sangha, then it's a different story. A Sangha lives in a monastery, not a condominium. Okay. Next. Okay? So, you can enjoy all the foods that you want. I'm still waiting for someone to give me that red urine. See, in my Metalodge class, I have a couple there who owns plantations. So every time I share that, I keep on reminding him, Yeah, they got this. Don't leave that slide. It's very important. Brother Kongwei is trying to. They got this from Sabah. Yeah. That was my last birthday. My first daughter gave a cake. And the second daughter gave a cake. Then the goddaughter gave a cake. And a friend gave a cake. So I told everybody, all mine. I said, don't touch it. Okay, next please. However, in the midst of all, be constantly mindful we cannot live forever. That was the original lesson I started with. The Buddha told us even the mountains will move. So don't think that just because you are young, nothing will happen. Of course, young people fall sick. Last week, when I was taking 2 weeks ago, when I was taking the medical students in Sultanah Aminah, they showed me a young boy, 14 years old, multiple lymph nodes in the neck, all matted together, big liver, big spleen. And of course, it was a very good teaching case, Henry. So you discuss about all the differential diagnoses from tuberculosis to lymphoma to, of course, HIV finally at the end. And then we say, 14 years old, unlikely to be HIV. But of course, think of TB, that's treatable. That's a very good diagnosis to have. We can cure him. Or lymphoma, not so good. excellent teaching patient for students because lots of physical science and long history. So this week when I went back to teach, the investigations have come back. And the 14-year-old boy has HIV. The worst possible of the list of differential diagnosis. So of course even 14-year-old boy can have HIV. It's not that they can't. But the point is that, you see, we're all surprised and stunned, because we say, things happen. Young people fall sick, young people have accidents. So in the midst of all that happiness that we have, be constantly mindful that we cannot live forever. So make use of our time wisely. Be a museum curator and preserve some things good. Be a generous person, donate something. Be a Sunday school teacher. Those with money can help build one more aircon. And remember, we can't take anything with us when we die, except your karma. Okay? But we can leave a bit of ourselves behind so that we make a difference to someone, help someone become better. For a better tomorrow, just give your best today. And life is one thing we cannot get out of a life. And nothing is definite in this world, but change is definite. Next. And very important, be at peace with one and all. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels. Okay, next please. Let the spiritual life be seamlessly mixed with our work. We can all find purpose in doing things that are meaningful in our everyday life, in our everyday work, society, by sharing, caring, giving, helping, loving, and applying the Dhamma in our everyday lives. And again, this is merely a paraphrase of what the Buddha taught. Dana is giving. It's not just money. Dana includes your skill, your time, your knowledge. It's not just money. Don't just be a parasite. Give back something in return. Sila. Sila is precepts. If you keep your precepts well, you are not a person who is going to be destructive to your neighbor, your friends, your society. Metta is unconditional love. May all beings be happy and well, except the homosexual. May all beings be happy and well, except one committee. No, that's not what the Buddha taught. The Buddha said, it's unconditional. May all beings be happy and well. Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, free thinkers, whatever. May all beings be happy and well. We do not put clauses like insurance, exclusion clause 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't. Okay, that's metta, the Buddha said. It's unconditional love. Karuna, as you know, is compassion. And you've got to apply this not within the confines of a temple or a society, but in our everyday life. Believe me, you, all those fellas, in another 2-3 years will be doctors treating you all. Okay, next. So it's easy to say we love, but it's actually difficult to demonstrate it every day. Next. Now, our attitude towards unavoidable sufferings, we must never forget that we can find meaning in life even when confronted with a hopeless situation. And there will be many times in life where things are just bad. A circumstance that cannot be changed. Next. For what then matters is to bear witness to human potential at its best, which is to transform a tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. And there are people with great disadvantages in life who manage to turn it around. Jiwaka is one, Helen Keller another one, Nelson Mandela another one. Okay, maybe Aung San Suu Kyi one day, we don't know. We learn the lessons of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self from the reality TV of life. Next. And when we no longer are able to change the situation like an incurable illness, we are challenged to change ourselves. Okay, next. So on sufferings, all of us will grow old, of course. Next. Do not think of all the misery, but of the beauty that still remains. Let us all see that beauty in our difficult times. It is possible. Next. Okay. Next. There's still much that is beautiful and simple things too. And in this cartoon, the local newspaper asked a reporter to come for my 90th birthday. He asked the secret to my longevity. Simple, say I to him. Keep breathing. And in the Buddhist context, this is very meaningful, isn't it? Right. Next. On experiencing failure, disappointments and failures in life are inevitable. A person with right view will do well and not fall into disillusion, cynicism and pessimism. They see failure as anicca. Even failure is impermanent, it will change. And it's a valuable crucible to become better. And failure can actually be an opportunity for learning and personal growth. Just like now, Warren Buffett has learned more about what stocks not to buy. Don't buy energy stocks, he said. Okay, next. What is our attitude towards death? Can we accept death? Do we understand what is death? If we refuse to accept impermanence and death now, we will pay dearly throughout our lives at the moment of our death and thereafter. Next. Look at this cartoon. It's a wonderful cartoon that has a deep, deep lesson. Calvin says, I don't understand this business about death. If we are just going to die, what's the point of living? And of course, Hobbes there has no answer either. Now, this cartoon is actually amazing because this question is the same question the Bodhisattva raised. If you're all going to die, the Bodhisattva said, what's the point of acquiring wealth, kingdom, land, titles, wives, riches? This was the same question the Bodhisattva raised. All right, you should read Calvin and Hobbes. It's a very Buddhistic strip, you know. Calvin is definitely in his past life a Buddhist. Next. We need to step back and reflect. Next. To me, the point of living is to live a meaningful and purposeful life. Next. The death of someone we love can be a harsh but effective teacher to make us become a more understanding person and give us a new outlook in our lives. Next. Now, people live in denial of death and in terror of it. Of course, now we've got Botox, we've got plastic surgery, we've got placenta injections, all dangling this promise of beauty and youth. And we live so much in denial that even after people are dead, we actually put makeup on them to make them look alive. Okay? Next. And sometimes we lose our humanness in needless, futile attempts, but realize nature will always win in the end. Nature has a job to do. It favors none. Prayer or no prayer, it favors none. It's just nature. Next. Okay, next. We can view death as a mirror in which the entire meaning of life is reflected. So if we wish to die well without regret, we must learn how to live well. And the art of dying is actually the art of living. Next. So don't worry about tomorrow. After all, today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. Okay, next. The journey is the point, not the arrival. And Nibbana is a subtle realization of non-grasping. We can't drive ourselves to Nibbana. That's the sure way of never realizing it. It's here and now. So if you're driving yourselves to Nibbana, we're always going further away, driving right over it. Remember, it's enlightenment, letting go, not and more. Okay? And when you have discovered the meaning for living, contemplate the prospect of living the kind of life again and again until enlightenment. And that's why, you see, people, all of us have personalities, tendencies. You know, my first and second daughter have completely different tendencies, different personalities. Raised by the same parents from birth, but yet they have completely different personalities. And I'm sure you notice it even within your own families. We carry forward our inherent tendencies from the past. I tell my second daughter, you must have been a Jew in your past life. Because even when she was very small, she's always money, you know. When she was a small little girl, she used to sleep with her purse underneath her pillow. And she refuses to eat any chicken or any meat that has still blood that can be seen. You know, so I always tell her, you must have been a Jew in the past life. Next. Many things in our lives is beyond our control, but our response to it is in our hands. Okay? Next. Now, religion, in summary, is the life that we live, not in the creed that we profess. And this is my final message, and I believe probably the most important message. People call themselves Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Taoist, whatever. Okay, it's more chops on the forehead, more labels on the chop. Chop, chop, chop. It really doesn't matter what you call yourself. You call yourself free thinker, congratulations. You call yourself anything, congratulations. The point is, it is not what you call yourself, because you can call yourself anything. After you die, it makes no difference what you call yourself. People eat or don't eat for their religion. Okay, some people say, my religion don't allow it this, cannot. Or some people eat certain foods for their religion. People dress for their religion. People preach for their religion. People kill for their religion. But people do not live what their religion teaches them. And this includes the Buddhists. We are not any less guilty. We are just as guilty as any other people. All right? What do I mean by this? We all pick and choose what our religious teachers teach us. And what fits into our lifestyle, we hold on to it like gold and we say, that is what my teacher taught me. What doesn't fit into our lifestyle, we push it aside. And I give you an example. I have very, very close friends who are devout Christians who teach us in Sunday school for 20 over years. I drink tea with them very often. And so inevitably, sometimes the discussion revolves around religion. Okay? And so sometimes we chit-chat and all that. And I asked them, the Sermon on the Mount is such a beautiful sermon. I studied it when I was in school 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And I still remember it's such a beautiful sermon. Okay? Or the Beatitudes. And one of the teachings is that if someone slaps you on one side, you offer the other side. Now that is a wonderful, beautiful teaching. That only someone who understands anatta, or non-self, can actually act that way. If you read the teachings of the Venerable Sariputta, the Venerable Sariputta at one time said, let me be like the sand and the soil of the earth, where people can pour anything on it, and I will absorb it without resistance. Okay? He went on to a whole long list of examples. Let me be this, let me be that. And when people read, how can a man possibly be like that? A man can only possibly be like that if he has truly understood anatta, where his ego has been completely laid down, where conceit, one of the most difficult factors to overcome, has been eradicated. So if you again look at that teaching, if someone slaps you on the left cheek, you turn to the right and offer it to him. You will understand that only somebody who completely understands what is non-self, what is the laying down of the ego, can do. But my friends tell me, no, you are interpreting it literally. It is not meant to be interpreted literally. It is a lesson, but not to be interpreted like you are doing literally. So then I said, well, if you just read further down, he says that if someone sues you for your upper robe, you not only give him your upper robe, you give him your sarong as well. And the Jews of those days only have a two-piece clothing, upper robe and sarong. Which literally means if someone sues you for this, you not only give him this, you give him everything. So again, that is not to be interpreted literally. It's merely a lesson in generosity, but not to that extent. So this is what I mean, that we pick and choose. What fits into our lifestyle, yes, wonderful. What doesn't fit into our lifestyle, we say not to be taken literally. And we Buddhists are equally guilty. Equally guilty. But luckily we Buddhists only got 5 precepts. We only got 5 things. Okay? 5 things to which we try our very best to stick to as training rules. So among my class at Metta Lodge, we are now into our 5th year. So, of course, we know each other very well after 5 years of seeing each other every Thursday night. So the first precept, not to kill. The second precept, not to steal. So not to steal, they say, okay, it's all right. We always put our parking coupon exactly on the correct time. Okay, we have done our very best. And not to have sexual misconduct, oh, no problem. We all are single spouse only, we don't play a fool. And not to tell lies. There are quite a number of businessmen among my group, so they say, we do not tell lies, we just don't tell the complete truth. And finally, the part on intoxicants. Many of them are business people who need to entertain a lot, but they have managed to overcome it. They say, yeah, we have stopped taking alcohol already, which is wonderful. So among the Buddhist community, for the lay people, it's far simpler. All you have is 5 rules, We don't even have a rule that says if someone slaps you on your left, you give him the right. We don't have a rule that says if someone sues you for your upper robe, you give him your sarong. We only have 5. So, for us as lay people, even if you don't get enlightened, basically it is living these 5 precepts. Getting right view and doing good. In not killing, you offer life. Okay? And offering of life is not just merely the offering of life as it is. You can also be an organ donor. You can donate your time, your skill, whatever. Okay? Donate your time to Buddhist fellowship, for example. Okay? You do not steal. You're a person who do not take advantage of somebody else's property in their lapse of mindlessness. Okay? You are again giving trust. You do not have sexual misconduct. You're giving your spouse that trust. You do not lie. People know that you speak the truth. Okay? And you do not drink intoxicants, so it's unlikely that you will act foolishly in a moment of folly because you've got yourself drunk or got yourself high on some drugs. So, religion basically, as far as the Buddha Dharma is concerned, is a way of life. I hope you realize that the word Buddhism didn't even exist until the year 1801 or something to that effect. When the first time the word was actually written by a Caucasian colonialist on the religion that was practiced by the people of Sri Lanka. The word Buddhism didn't even exist before that. The Buddha Dharma is basically a way of life that you subscribe to. Okay? We do not have creeds, we do not have creeds that we swear to or catechism that you must not challenge. In fact, the Buddha said challenge everything. Think, and only when it is true you accept it. So, take home message, if you do not get enlightened, it's perfectly alright, but live the life of meaning, with right view, with right direction, and whatever creed you claim that you profess is all words. Words leads to something. So if words do not lead to something, it's just words, that's all. Okay? Thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu.